Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Wild Yoga Tribe podcast. I'm your host, Lily Allen Duenas. Together, we'll talk about the world of yoga and we'll talk to people from around the world. Before diving into the episode, I wanted to invite you to head on over to my Patreon account. I would love your support, and I'm thrilled to have this beautiful community space where we can do yoga together, meditate together, and you'll get access to exclusive content. Get ready for some private Zoom Q&As, free printable art, meditation recordings, and more. Follow the link in the show notes to get started, or head on over to any of my social media channels or my website, wildyogatribe.com, to hang out, get to know each other better, and find out more about all the support and resources available to you. Ready to dive in? Let's get started. Namaste, family, and welcome back to the Wild Yoga Tribe podcast. Today, I'm so excited to be joined by Lianik Borlasca. She's a yoga teacher from El Salvador. She's also the yoga studio owner of Peace and Yoga in San Salvador, and her passion has been Jnana and Raja yoga, the study of the self as ultimate knowledge. She's also a teacher of Qigong, Tai Chi, and is a Reiki master. Her goal is to integrate everything to teach yoga from different perspectives to break paradigms around the practice. She's organized International Yoga Day in El Salvador for many years and has introduced yoga to the public in El Salvador by teaching yoga on several different TV channels. So thank you so much, Lianik, for being here with me today.
Thank you, Lily. Actually, I'm very excited about this interview. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much. And I would love to just kick off the conversation by asking how yoga first came into your life.
Yoga came to me after I learned about meditation. I was in high school by then, and meditation was very helpful for me because I was so stressed. There was some stressful situations around high school about bullying and everything. So meditation helped me to mitigate that situations. After I started to meditate, my father discovered me meditating by my own, and he by himself used to meditate and study about philosophy and everything. So he brought me a book about meditation with techniques about meditation, and it helped me a lot to be ordered in my path or in my practices about meditation. I start to get deep in that practice. After a couple of years of meditating, just meditation, no asana practices, I discovered another books, another TV programs and everything, and start to practice by my own with that as reference. And by that days, there was no proper internet here in this country. So it was super difficult to practice.
I love that your dad just found you sitting meditating in a room. Then he came back and handed you a book. What a great dad. Wow.
Yes, it was a funny story because it was in a dark room. I was sitting, watching a candle, just very organic. Nobody told me what I had to do that. And then he opened the door and just saw me. And 5 minutes later, he bring me a book. And it was a meditation book.
I love that. And so it sounds like yoga and meditation have both been great helpers, saviors in your life when you've been really stressed and overwhelmed. It seems like these practices come back to you time and again.
Yeah, actually, I started to practice yoga when I was at college. I had maybe 1 year of beginning my architecture career in the university. And it was super stressful, so stressful. And I had 16 or 17 years old by then. Meditation and the asana practice, yoga practice, it was really therapeutic for me. because it helped me to get the energy, to get the relaxation, and to find comfort during the classes and the projects and deliveries that I had to do during my studies, and find comfort into the discomfort and to relax and remember that everything was under control if I am under control, and anything else besides me, it didn't matter, because yoga helped me to be in control of my own. So it helped me emotionally, helped me physically, helped me mentally, and I feel like I had some kind of temple around me when I was practicing yoga. So I could find comfort in the discomfort, and it was like a life saving.
I totally know what you mean, and I can absolutely relate that yoga has absolutely given me that gift of learning how to be comfortable when I'm uncomfortable. Like, no matter what's going on, when you're at the airport and your plane's late, or when you're traveling and there's traffic, or when you have a difficult coworker in a conversation, I think there's so much that yoga teaches us to just breathe, take the moment, and then just stay with it. You don't have to escape, run away. Yoga, we can often, in asana practice, be in very difficult, uncomfortable positions, and you just have to stay there for 5 breaths, just breathe. So it's this muscle memory that we're putting into our bodies that's also translating into our minds. It's amazing.
And just the gift of learning how to breathe during that postures and the parallels with the postures and situations in life, in daily life, that's a gift, a golden gift in your life. So if once you learn how to breathe and relax and to be with that moment, with that situation, and accept it, you can integrate it in everything in your life.
Absolutely. You can integrate it. And what I loved learning about you and getting to know you and your work better is how you did say that you are trying to integrate all of these practices and different perspectives from Tai Chi and Qigong and Reiki and astrology, and I mean, so many different things to break the paradigms around the practice. Could you talk to us more about what you mean by that?
Yes, I believe that yoga is not just the physical practice. And actually, because my passion is Jnana yoga and Raja yoga, I discovered that yoga is a path and a destination at the same time, and is a way of living. So you cannot limitate yourself to practice some physical postures or exercises, breathing exercises, or just meditation. It must be more complex. It must be like a universe for you. So many dimensions. You have to bring that layers, dimensions, and integrate anything that you are studying, that you are living, that you are practicing in one single practice. That's your life. When I started to practice yoga and teaching yoga, I discovered here in this society, they are so conservators and they are religious. I am not a religious person. I don't have a religion that defines me, and I don't define myself with and don't feel connected to any religion. There is so many paradigms around the practice of yoga because some people believe it's a sect. Some people believe you have to behave in certain way to practice the asanas. And some people think you have to dress in certain way or to eat in a certain way. And the truth is that the The asana practice, I am talking just about the physical practice. It's friendly for everybody, and the limitations are only in your mind. Some people think that if you have any physical issue or problem or health problem, you can't practice yoga. And that kind of paradigms I'm trying to break during the time that I'm been teaching.
That's so amazing. I love that you're trying to break those and say, hey, yoga's for everybody. And yoga also can be anything. As you said, the limitations exist only in your mind. That's so powerful. And I would love for you to talk to about, since your passion is Raja Yoga and Jnana Yoga, can you define what those are for our listeners in case they're not familiar, and talk to us more about why those are the two kind of aspects on the path of yoga that have really drawn you in and filled you with that love of yoga?
Oh, wow, that's a really good question. Raja Yoga and Jnana Yoga, these are two of the four branches of yoga. So, yoga is not a physical practice, not just that. As I said, you can't be limited by the physical practice because you are limiting yourself. You are limiting yourself only to the physical reality. Dimension of the human being is more than physical. It's mental, it's consciousness, it's existence, it's love, it's studies, it's reflections and memories. And the physical dimension is the most limited dimension of the human being. The first thing that I started to study actually was Raja Yoga, Jnana Yoga, because I was studying philosophy parallel to the architecture career, and it gave me the opportunity of get deep in the Indian philosophy. And then I learned that Jnana Yoga is the studies of the text that I was studying back then. Jnana Yoga is the intellectual research about the truth and the self-realization with the help of the texts. For example, the Upanishads and all the classic texts around the Indian culture, and it is so profound, so atemporal that it can be applied until this day. And Raja Yoga is the connection and the sum of the texts, the study of the Jnana Yoga, plus Patanjali Yoga or Ashtanga Yoga, which Ashtanga is not precisely what people think it is right now. It's not the physical practice. Ashtanga Yoga, in the more pure and the purest definition, is the 8 steps or 8 branches of living according to yoga, from the moral and ethical practices and service to the humanity, the control of your body, which is asanas, the breath, the concentration, the capacity of meditation, and the self-realization. Is the sum of everything else, of everything that I mentioned. I was telling you, the studies of the texts, the studies of Patanjali Yoga or Ashtanga Yoga, the practices, and practical practices, and the service to the others, to the society, that's Raja Yoga. So Raja Yoga, it's a total practice, a full way of living.
Amazing. And in El Salvador, when you have Raya Yoga and Jnana Yoga at the center of your teaching, how has that been received by your community in El Salvador?
I introduced the concepts and terminology and ethical practices in a very subtle way. So nobody knows when I'm teaching that I am actually subliminally giving them some techniques and tips for daily life. They think they are just going to my classes and doing the asana, the vinyasa flow, and the hatha yoga, and the stretchings and the breath. But the real thing is that, well, while I am in them, the asanas, the hatha yoga, I am also talking about the mental benefits, the psychological benefits that they are of what they are doing, and the symbology behind every posture. So that's the way I introduce and initiate my students in the Jnana yoga concepts. And eventually, when they are grown up in their own practice, they know very organically, they know that everything can be related to their living, to their daily life.
Yes. And I love that you're giving those like soft messages. In El Salvador, has there been any push or pull where yoga has been challenged by your culture, or is it something that's just been embraced beautifully?
No, it was some push and pulls. No, it was some issues around the yoga practices because, as I said before, the yoga was related, it is still related for some people to the Hinduist practices. And it is a mistake, it is a misconception about yoga. And the misconceptions that I talked before about the way of living, the way of eating, the dress codes that they think there are still in their society very very they are still in the society. I'm trying to find the words.
Does your culture, like in El Salvador, was yoga banned, or were people scared to start yoga? They're like, oh no, I can't do yoga. That would be
Yeah.
against my religion. Or was there any ever of that, or has it always just coexisted in the culture?
It always has been there, and people, everybody, including myself, everybody, we have some excuses for this, for the most important things that we need, and we don't want to start something that's important, something new that we know in the deep inside by the intuition we know we need, because we are scared of facing that. And that's what happens here. I can see people going one class and then never show again because they are not flexible enough. They can't bend, for example. And that's my misconception. Or, as I said about the religion, when I said, thank you for coming and let's bring a sankalpa, our intention, to our class, they think we are about to pray, for example. Or when I say namaste, they are confused about the namaste term. Before, there was no schools of yoga. There was no shalas. So the introduction of shalas or yoga schools, yoga studios in El Salvador was very useful because when I started teaching, there was no schools, and there was some institutes and some cultural centers that they were offering yoga, but their own conception of yoga, not the yoga that you can see right now everywhere. But with the introduction of yoga studios, the people start to accept the yoga practice, and it was more easy to teach, to open the teaching to the audience. It was more friendly for the people also to go and to flow with the yoga tendencies, because it became more fashion. It was a fashion, and it still is. And the tendency is increasing. So it gives me the opportunity to open a little bit more to the audience some of the subtle concepts 10 years ago I was unable to share.
Amazing. But you've also been sharing it on television. Were you invited to do that, or were you leading classes on local channels? What was going on there?
Actually, and honestly, I don't know. I think it was part of my dharma somehow. TV channels and radio programs, they they used to call me and ask me, hey, can you share something with, can you teach some tips, some yoga, 10 minutes of yoga from us, from our program or everything? And I never say no because I think the communication programs, they are so useful tools for propagate the yoga practices, and common people can see, can watch. If the hosts are practicing with me, they say, hey, I can practice too. The most important thing here is that I could share that way of living, that small way of practice of yoga to a larger audience.
Yeah, absolutely. Any opportunity to share yoga with an audience of one person, of 1 million people, it's still an incredible opportunity to plant seeds. You never know where the fertile soil is. And so to be able to just plant those seeds is a special thing. And for our listeners, Lianik, who aren't very familiar with El Salvador, could you share more about your country as a whole?
Okay, El Salvador is a coast country. It has coast almost everywhere. It is so small country you can drive from top to bottom in 4 hours, and from east to west in 8 hours. Is so small, and you can see mountains and volcanoes and beaches so close of each other. So it's tropical. It is warm. There is a nice weather all the year. All year is so constant. El Salvador is called Surf City because people come here to surf. It's one of the three capitals of surfing in the world. And I've known that surfers, they are so attracted to yoga also for the benefits that they get for the concentration and the balance skills. So that has been useful also for the yoga history here, because people from another countries, they come and do their surf championships and practice yoga with us, with the instructors and teachers here. It's a nice place. Is like tropical, beachy.
Amazing. So it's a small country, coastal, beachy, great surfing, and I'm imagining great food.
Oh yeah.
And since El Salvador is small too, are there yoga shalas now all around the country?
Yeah, most of the country now. 10 years ago, it was not like that. But now there is a lot of shalas. You can see shalas in the coast part of the country. You can see shalas in the central part of the country, everywhere. Yes.
And a question I love to ask all of my guests on the show is, what is your personal definition of yoga?
Personal definition of yoga. Yes. So, yoga for me is, of course, a way of living, but it's more than that. Yoga is the integration of that practices and services that you bring to the people that surrounds you, and the sum of that karma yoga practices with the ethical and moral personal practices and the way of living, thinking, talking, and feeling. It's like coherence. It's a coherent way of life. And it is more than the physical practices. It's a path of living that it begins when you are aware of the necessity of find yoga, but it never ends. So it's an infinite path of self-knowledge, of self-study, and how you can develop and be a better person inside out.
I can't believe that you said yoga is a coherent way of living. I've never heard anyone say that before. That was so beautiful, Lianik. So yoga is a way of living with more clarity, more coherence, more insight and awareness. Am I interpreting that right?
Yes, totally right. Yes. It's coherence. It's a coherence in your acts, it's coherence in your thoughts, in your way of speak and way of living. It's coherence, yes.
Beautiful. So if any of the people who've listened to the show today, if they want to learn more about you, if they want to reach out, I will, of course, link your Instagram and Facebook in the show notes so people can click it and they can read more about you on my website, wildyogatribe.com/yoga in El Salvador. But do you want to share with our listeners your social media presences so they know how to find you?
Yeah, you can find me in Instagram. My Instagram account is at Peace Yoga SV, and you can find me in Facebook also. My page it's called Peace Yoga El Salvador, and you can reach me there. I normally answer all the questions, and you can DM me if you want to, if you have any doubt or want to show to my classes, because I not just teach in present the classes, but also I have a live Zoom classes, so you can take my classes anywhere in the world if you want.
Amazing. The Zoom has given us a lot of gifts. It's been
Yeah.
Yeah, we've been lucky to have that through the pandemic.
Yes, thanks pandemic for opening the doors.
And you kept your yoga studio open throughout the pandemic?
Oh no, I couldn't. Actually, I have to close 18 months. It was a personal choice to close so much because some people start to open 6 months after the pandemic starts, some people 1 year. But I wanted to make sure that my students have the insurance to show up without risks, and it has been the better. It was the best for everybody. So during that time, and from March 2020, I started to teach Zoom lessons, and until now, the Zoom sessions they are still going on, parallel to the studio practices.
Great. Awesome. And Lianik, it has been such a beautiful conversation. I've been so lucky to spend this time with you. Big thank you for being here with me and our listeners today.
Wow, Lily, no, thank you. Thank you for letting me talk about this. And I hope the audience like the interview also, and for your patience and your time.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Wild Yoga Tribe podcast. My conversation with Lianik Borlasca, a yoga teacher from El Salvador, was multidimensional as we took a deep dive into the spiritual understanding of Jnana and Raja yoga. I hope that this conversation made you curious about the paradigms that exist around yoga and what we can do to shift them. If you're looking to tune into a podcast episode that's all about the dimensions of yoga, then this is the conversation for you. Thank you for listening to the Wild Yoga Tribe podcast. Be well. Thank you for the gift of your attention today. If you feel called, please share this episode with someone who you think could benefit from it. Leaving a review would also be so appreciated. I also hope you can join me online on my website, wildyogatribe.com, or on social media. I would love to get to know you better. I would love to share with you and to hear your thoughts. Send me a DM, send me a note, get in touch. It would be great to hear from you. And as always, be well, dear one, be well.